Before we start today's episode, I would like to quickly read you our podcast disclaimer. The content in this podcast is for general reference and educational purposes only. It is not meant to be complete or exhaustive or to be applicable to any specific individual's medical condition. No information provided in this podcast constitutes medical advice and is not an attempt to practice medicine or to provide specific medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. This podcast does not create a physician-patient relationship and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Please do not rely on this podcast for emergency medical treatment. Remember that everyone is different, so make sure you consult your own healthcare professional before seeking any new treatment and before you alter, suspend, or initiate a new change in your routine. Welcome to The Starting Gate. We're your hosts, Dr. Kitty Dotson
and Dr. Sarah Sheets,
two internal medicine doctors who spent years practicing traditional primary care. Over time, we realized something was missing from modern healthcare. A real understanding of how everyday lifestyle choices impact overall health.
We'll help you cut through the noise of the countless health influencers and their conflicting opinions. Because no matter who you follow, the basics of lifestyle medicine are at the heart of it all.
Welcome back to The Starting Gate. We're your hosts, Dr. Kitty Dotson
and Dr. Sarah Sheets.
Hopefully you have enjoyed this last month learning all about the aches and pains that you might be having in our musculoskeletal series. But today we are switching focus and we are going to talk about lifestyle medicine and pediatrics and really just how can we make it through this summer with our kids and our sanity.
I know we've all been thinking about this recently in the month of May, so...
You have to start thinking about it in January because if you're going to do any camps, you have to think about it so early.
A long time thinking about this, but now we're feeling a little bit more pressure since it's right around the corner here. And we're very excited to have our guest today, Dr. Sarah O'Leary. She's double board certified in internal medicine and pediatrics and is known in the medicine world as a med-peds doctor. She has years of experience in primary care, but now is focusing on teaching and is currently a teacher at EKU. She's also working on her lifestyle medicine certification and very much an advocate for all things lifestyle medicine. So we are so excited to have you.
Thank you, guys. I'm excited to do this with you.
To get us started, can you just give our listeners a little bit of information about how you ended up becoming a med-peds doctor?
Yeah, so I did medical school up at the Ohio State University. Go Bucks. Came down to UK for residency, did a dual residency in pediatrics and internal medicine. Actually, Kitty was one of my chief residents my intern year.
Remember that when I had Sarah on my team, it just felt like the energy was higher. You just had more energy. All the rest of us are like dragging, and here comes Sarah. It's like she had jazz hands. Good morning. I'm ready for rounds. It was great.
That went on for a little while. But yeah, so I guess the way I ended up doing both medicine and peds is I was in the end of med school is just really fascinated by the complexities of internal medicine and all the different things going on in people's organ systems and all the marvels of modern medicine that we have to offer. But on the flip side, what I loved about the kids was they're generally healthy. We get to talk about fun, simple things like a lot of the things we're going to talk about today. And so it was a good balance for me for a long time to be able to really use my brain to work hard on solving these intense medical problems and then going into the next room and holding someone's 2-week-old baby and just talking with the parents about how hard this time in life was and giving them some tips on how to make things a little easier.
And just like Kitty and I, we know that you found lifestyle medicine later in your career. Could you give our listeners a little bit of information on what drove you to learn more about that specifically?
Yeah, I think really a few things over the years, but sometimes it's best to tell a story. I actually had a patient that I'd been seeing for 6-7 years, and she has type 2 diabetes, and we've been up and down over the years with her blood sugar, her A1C, and we'd have these talks every few months about low carb, and she would do it really well, and her numbers would get better. And so anyway, she was coming in for a follow-up visit and had managed to get her A1C down dramatically in the previous 3 to 4 months, which is hard to do. If a patient can come in and get it down a point, that's fantastic.
That's huge.
I'm talking she was down 2, 3, a lot of points. And so I remember going in the room and saying, what did you do? Did you go back on low carb? And she said, no, Dr. O'Leary. She said, I have been eating a whole food plant-based diet. And I think my eyebrows hit the ceiling and my jaw hit the floor. And I thought, really? How does this work? So I asked her about what she was doing, and she actually recommended a book to me by Dr. Michael Greger from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. It's called How Not to Die. I ordered it on Amazon that day, and I can't say I voraciously read the entire thing. It's
long.
It's
very long.
Book. Yeah.
I've listened to it.
Oh my gosh, it's a huge book, and it's a really good resource. But I read the intro, and then I read the diabetes section, and I was just shocked to learn so many things that we just didn't get to learn in medical school. It's a very vigorous curriculum we go through as it is, and there's not a lot of time to add a lot of things in, but we really missed out on some things because the only counseling I had been able to give anybody was eat low carb. And there's actually a lot more to it. She really sent me going in that direction. And that whole encounter happened at a time when I was already really starting to feel a lot of stress and some disenchantment about my job in primary care. I felt like I was not really solving any problems. I was just covering things up and prescribing a lot of medicines. And I just felt like there had to be something else out there. So it was kind of the right time for that experience to hit me. I just also have to throw a shout out to my mom, who was way ahead of her time. She's not a physician, but she was reading Dean Ornish, back in the 90s, and has eaten a mostly plant-based diet her whole adult life. And she's a yoga teacher, and she's very into mindfulness and all this sort of thing. So she's always challenged me, that there has to be something more besides just prescribing medicines and things like that. So having her influence and then the influence of my patients, they were asking more questions about it, and I wanted to be able to feel confident giving them answers.
I love when I get to learn from my patients.
Oh, me too.
All the time. All the time. And you're writing stuff down, and then you're looking it up, and you're checking it.
Yeah,
but
my favorite
these
is
are smart people.
It's give me that book. I'm always
Yes!
what's that book? Let me write it down.
I had a note in my phone constantly. It was
Yes.
advice from patients. And I'd be like,
And you're like, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that. Yes.
oh, that's awesome.
Definitely.
We talk a lot about the pillars of lifestyle medicine, and usually we're referring to adults, but starting at a young age and showing kids how important these things are is so critical for them developing those skills as an adult. So can you go over with us how you think about applying those lifestyle medicine principles to kids and to parents? Because really we're the ones imparting that advice to them.
Right. I think all the pillars are applicable to kids. You just have to do it in their own way. So the big things that I think about is, as you alluded to already, that you're laying the foundation now when they're young, what they're used to, what kind of foods they're used to, what kind of a lifestyle they're used to, how do your parents deal with stress, what do we do together as a family. And so our kids are always learning whether we're trying to be didactic or not. The examples that you said are very important as well. Remembering what kids can and can't control. Ultimately, they do control what they put in their bodies, but we control generally what's available in the home. And so thinking about at different levels what you control, what they control, as you're setting your good example for them. And just working on creating long-term, sustainable, healthy habits and showing them how to do that just by the way that you live your life, really.
No pressure.
Yeah, they're always watching and listening. They're always listening.
Recently, it was Mother's Day, right? Those sheets, when they fill them out about you. They're such an honest look of your own reflection of what your kids think. I always find those very fascinating. But I was very proud that one of my daughters had filled one out and said that Mommy likes to spend a lot of time in the kitchen. I was like, you know what? I'll take that. If that's what you think and where I'm spending a lot of time, I'll keep it there. But yes, they're always watching us. Now, when it comes to thinking about summer, and we're thinking about all the pillars of lifestyle medicine, it gets really overwhelming for parents thinking about how am I going to balance everything when we don't have the structure of school? What would you tell parents when they're trying to think of that summer plan of how to go about it?
I think that less structure can be good, can encourage us to be more creative and to really enjoy our downtime and spend time with people that we love. But kids also thrive on routine, right? So I would encourage any parent to keep some kind of a routine, even if it's quite different than the one that you practice during the school year. You maybe don't have to be so regimented, whether that means we still eat dinner together, we still do bedtime routine. That's very helpful. These kinds of things can be very comforting and actually decrease stress in kids. So I'd say keep somewhat of a routine, even if it's different than the one that you normally practice.
And thinking about routine, sleep is a big one. I find my kids wanting to go to bed later. Do you have any thoughts about we have this time to let them sleep in? Should I let them sleep in? Or should I still be trying to wake them up around the same time every day, which is typically what we're going to stress for adults, is having that consistency with going to bed and getting up. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's okay to be somewhat flexible. And if your routine allows, maybe they're not getting on the bus at 7 o'clock. Maybe they don't need to be up till 8:30, whatever. I think that is fine. But trying to keep it relatively predictable is helpful for them, to keep their sleep cycles going. And it is easy to push back the going to bedtime because it's light out later, right? Like it feels silly to me putting my 10-year-old to bed when it's blazing sun is coming in. So being somewhat flexible, I'm not going to let them stay up till midnight, but I think we're going to have to do a little bit later, keeping in mind that kids in elementary school need a good 9 to 12 hours of sleep at night, whether that's school year or not school year, just to grow and to be healthy. And high school students need a good 8 to 10, similarly to what we do. Making sure that they're still getting enough hours, but maybe being a little flexible in the time can be helpful. For the really little ones, blackout curtains, sound machines, all that kind of stuff. Anybody, really. You don't have to be little. Adults can do that, too, to try to keep your cycles in line.
Yeah, because that's always the hardest part of summer schedule is the fact that you want to stay up much later just because of the sun. But I think I have found what helps best is, okay, we're adjusting to this summer schedule, but then we're going to stick to this summer schedule, even though it's different.
I don't know if you're going to do a back to school episode, but as you ease back into school in the fall, remembering it's going to take a few weeks to really get kids back on a schedule if their bedtime and their wake-up time have changed significantly. So I would usually encourage people at least 2 weeks before school starts to gradually, by 15-minute increments or so, to move back to your school sleep schedule.
And a great thing to use as a target there is like August 1 hits.
Yes. Yeah.
And now it's time to start adjusting because that gives you enough time before most people are starting school here in Fayette County. So keep that in mind. Write that in your calendar. August 1, think about sleep and adjusting that back. But another big thing that happens because there's not as many sporting activities and after school extracurriculars that we tend to get the question, Mom, I'm bored. So how do we manage that? Because I know anytime any parent hears that, they just cringe and they want to fix it.
Yes.
But how can we be proactive and be ready for that as parents leading into summer?
Yeah, I think you could think about a few different things, just different domains of activity that should be going on throughout the week. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail about physical activity later, but making sure that's a part of the day. You want to stay, if you got school-age kids, stay up on their academics, so you want them at least to be doing a little bit of reading most days. The little ones probably need to practice a little bit of writing, things like that. So you think in those domains, but also just have some things available, like for them to be more creative. Maybe you get some new art supplies and make it in a box, and go check out your art box. Or what you could do for the older kids is even when no one's in that state of mind, I'm bored. Before you get to that point, maybe write things down on little slips of paper, put it in a mason jar. Next time they say they're bored, point them to the jar. They go pick something else.
Oh, that's great.
A boredom jar.
I love it.
And then that kind of takes the heat off of you as the parent, too. They get the assignment from the jar. I don't know how that's probably not going to work for every kid. Nothing works for every kid. It's similar just with like adults, right? What if I say, this is how I do such and such, doesn't mean it's going to work for you. But for some kids, especially your type A firstborns, that would probably
Yes, my daughter for sure.
Yeah, and chores. They're home now more. They're going to be home more. So thinking about at their age, what can they do to help? And so if I'm so bored, I don't want to play with any of my toys. Did you dust the dining room, or did you give them a list of things, whether you're going to do some kind of token economy, or you're going to pay them in cash, or you're going to earn a privilege, or however you want to do that? That'd be another thing to do with their time.
Well, I love that. Another thing based on that is when we start having kids that are bored, one of the things that our culture right now does to counteract that is handing screens out. So what is the best way to go on and work on that boundary up front at the beginning of summer so it doesn't become that daily constant fight? How do you advise on that?
I think parental controls are super helpful. You set, if you're talking about a Switch or an Xbox or something, so you get X amount of minutes. And when the minutes are gone, the minutes are gone. And that's one way to do it. Then they're not coming and constantly asking. You could make it the kind of thing, again, with the chores or different responsibilities. Before you get your screen time, you have to do this and this. That would be a great way to get a routine going for the summer. Keeping in mind recommendations from the American Academy of Pediatrics, that's where I, as a pediatrician, get most of my information, is that the healthy limit for screen time for children is about 2 hours a day. And when you look at it, it doesn't sound like much when you really look at the long day. Or my kids get up early, and if they're staying up late, that's not a lot of time. So thinking of ways to split that up and maybe being a little more flexible in the summer. I think you have to be realistic, too. There's going to be days maybe you're driving to the beach and they're going to watch movies on the iPad for 8 hours. But then when you get to the beach, they don't need their iPad because they're going to be playing outside and they're going to be swimming and they're going to be doing family things. And I think taking that with a grain of salt, but shooting for that about 2 hours per day is a general limit.
I have a son that loves the Switch, and he could probably sit and play it the entire day. But and so I found when I would just tell him, like, okay, time's up, he would get very frustrated with me.
Yes, very common.
He's young, so I have this little timer now, and it's got a little circle, and so when he starts, we set the timer, and then he can see it.
Great.
And when the time is up, it goes off. And it's been much better because he knows that's it, and that has worked much better for us as far as his resistance to me telling him to turn it off.
I love timers. Yeah, that works for us for a lot of different aspects because you also don't get, hey, how much more time, that constant questioning and then the arguing about it. It's, hey, the timer will go off and it's done and we move on. So I love that advice because I think it's very helpful when everyone is on the same page from the beginning.
Yes. Lay the expectations out there for sure.
Another thing that comes up at summertime is sunscreen. It's really easy, especially at the beginning of summer, to have kids that get sunburnt so quickly because they've been in school, they haven't had as much exposure, so it comes at you pretty quick. So what is some of the advice and tips that you provide parents when it comes to sunscreen use in the summer?
Sure. I think just keeping it easy. I think you need to have sunscreen all over the place. You know, we keep ours in the drawer by the back door. So if we're going to go play out back, we have it right there. Keep one in the pool bag, that kind of thing. Keep one in your car.
Yeah, definitely keep one in the car.
Yeah, keep it where you are going to be. And I think some kids more than others, they don't really like sunscreen, right? It feels weird. It smells weird, things like that. I think keeping in mind how many different formulations are out there, especially if you have a kid that really isn't into thick, chalky lotions or they don't like the sprays. Maybe have a couple different kinds that you can try out to make people a little bit more agreeable to the whole process. One less fight to pick, but keeping in mind that it is important to try to get your sunscreen on as every time you're outside because we know that every sunburn you endure actually increases your risk of melanoma, especially in people with light skin and light hair like most of the people in this room. So yeah, trying to make it somewhat not a fight, I think every time would be helpful.
I know something that has helped is, and some of you already may know this tip, but a couple years ago I'd seen like using a makeup applicator for the face because the face is really hard and that helps. So you're not, done that. It can make it much easier to put on some of those thicker sunscreens.
Good idea.
Yeah, I find the mineral face stick. That seems to stay on my kids the longest. Honestly, so long that, like, even after their shower at night, sometimes
their face is still white. Yes. Their face is still white. Yes, we do that too.
That one I love.
It's working very well.
With that being said, we're doing lots more outdoor activities. Is there other things that parents should be thinking about from a safety standpoint? Just putting back in their minds, we should go over these rules with my kids as we are going into summer.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the biggest first one that comes to mind is water safety, whether that's in the pool or at the lake or at the beach or whatever your exposure is to water. Reminding kids that they do not get in the pool alone. A parent, a grown-up needs to know where they are, needs to be with them. We can't overstate the value of swim lessons. And this is actually a question that comes up on the pediatric boards, is about what's the best way to stop drowning in children, and the answer is swim lessons. It's not pool alarms or fence around the pool, which are tools for sure, but definitely learning how to swim is your most valuable thing. And even just working with your kids, teaching them how to float and blow bubbles and what happens if you fall in, what do you do, and that sort of thing. So water safety for sure. Life jackets when you're out on boats and things like that, absolutely. And then we think about in the summer playing outside, helmets. Got to do helmets. You just got to do helmets. Anything you're riding, you should wear a helmet. I was definitely raised and steeped in the no trampoline tradition in my training, and I'm very wary of trampolines, the big outdoor ones specifically. But if that's something that you're going to do, at least make sure it's one person at a time on the trampoline. A lot of the injuries come from when there's a big kid and a little kid jumping together, and we get a lot of broken arms and legs and things that way. So being really careful with that.
Now that we're going into summer, depending on the age of your kid, your children may be visiting friends in the neighborhood, and they may be in different homes than they normally are just because of the amount of time that they have this summer. what are some things that you counsel parents on to think about, either talking to your own kids about or addressing with some of your kids' friends' parents as well, just to make sure that they're not being exposed to risk within a home?
The outdoor things we mentioned, but even in your own home, your kids are going to be home a lot more, especially think about little ones, but also teens and tweens. You want to think about, is your medication locked up? Do they know not to take any medicine from anybody? Are there guns in the home? We live in Kentucky. It's not super uncommon for that to be the case, and that's okay. I think the thing we need to be asking is, are they locked up? Is it in a place that the kids can't get to? Again, the AP would suggest guns locked up in one place, ammo locked up in another place at all times, unloaded, and kids don't have access to that. Another thing I practice with my kids is, say you're at somebody's house and you see a gun, what do? The answer is tell a grown-up right away, not touch it, not do anything with it. So that's one thing to think about, things that you can talk about, what's going on in different people's houses. And it's a good experience for your kid to go to other people's houses. They learn how other people do things. Trying to keep them safe while they do that is important.
Do you have that conversation with other parents before you send your kid over there?
I do.
Give me an example of what you say.
I have felt funny about it, but I do it because I feel like it's my job, right? It is my job. Yeah. If I'm sending them over somewhere, I'll text them ahead of time and say, do you have guns in your home? I'll tell them, I'm just a pediatrician and I'm trying to be proactive and no judgment. But the last time I asked that question, the mom wrote me back and said, we do not have guns, not even Nerf. We got lots of Nerf in my house, so I have 2 boys. But yeah, I think it's part of our job as parents. It would be the same thing if they were going to go over to their house and they had a pool. You'd have a plan about that. Are you going in the pool? You're not going in the pool? What's going on with that?
And I think that's important because it happens really quickly. Like, you have really small kids and they're always with you, right? And then suddenly your kids are going to other people's houses.
I don't see them for hours.
And you don't have that bridge of being like, oh, this is new. I need to start having these conversations. It just happens quickly. So I think that is a great reminder. And another one to think about is also talking about screens, because there's lots of things that kids can be exposed to. And if they're in different homes, of knowing what is your screen policy, just understanding, is there technology that's just open and available that kids will have access to.
And I think one of the things to talk about with your kids, you can't control what the rules are in somebody else's house. You can control whether your kid goes there or not, but you can also educate your child on, say you're at his house and you're on the iPad together and you see something scary or something inappropriate or something that gives you bad feelings in your tummy and you don't think you should be seeing it. What do you do? And it's put it down and tell a grown-up. And so that's when we practice it at my house too. Every time they say, can I look up something on the iPad? They're looking up how to build a Lego such and such. But you never know. Sometimes you get ads or you get weird things coming up there. Similarly, we'll be going back to the video game thing. I think it's very wise to make sure your kid is not connecting with other people on the internet playing video games that you don't know. Like, maybe it's different if you and their cousin are setting up a time and they're going to play Minecraft together or whatever, but it's not a safe world out there, as we know, to have your kid be interacting with people we don't know on the internet.
And there are so many parental controls available out there. That's one thing. I have no idea when it comes to technology, as Sarah can tell you.
We're low-tech people around here.
But luckily my husband's really good at the parental controls to make sure. But if you didn't know that those existed, I think your kid could easily be communicating with all sorts of people without you even realizing it.
Yeah, and kids will get around parental control. They're so much smarter than us.
They are.
Already. So keeping an eye. We've even had one of those already that I said, how we set the timer at 2 hours. How come they're still on the switch? They had overridden it.
Yeah.
They just have to know the password. We use the same password for everything. So they just knew what it was. So, yeah, they're going to outsmart us. You got to be ready. You got to be ready to change at a minute's notice.
I always reflect on myself as a child and things that I was just like, okay, I got to remember. They're
going to think of this. They're going to think of that. And they should be pushing boundaries and trying new things out.
Why don't we switch into talking about the pillars of lifestyle medicine and how we can apply them this summer? Because I think that's helpful because it gives parents ideas of, we can do these things, and give it for the structure aspect as well as thinking about how to have a happy, healthy summer. So our favorite topic, nutrition.
Of course, yes.
We're always trying to improve what our kids eat, and summer brings some unique challenges. What are some ideas to help promote some of those whole foods with kids in the summer that also can make it a little bit fun too? Right.
I think you have to try to make it fun and offer a variety of relatively nutrient-dense foods. Having the right things in the house. I'm not anti-treats or anything like that. We eat a lot of ice cream in my family, but maybe not having it in the home. Maybe saying we're going to go out and get ice cream. And if you're hungry for a snack during the day, here are all these choices ready for you, depending on how old your child is. But it would be great to have pre-washed and pre-cut fruit. I know my kids will eat fruit until it is gone. And so whether that's berries or whole apples or bananas or clementines or something that they can get for themselves, maybe that's unlimited. You can have as much fruit as you want, and then have some other things around that are, again, a little bit more nutrient dense when you can. There's different bars made with nuts if you can do nuts, and oats and whole grains and things like that. Popcorn can be a great snack. And just trying to limit the things that really have a very low nutrient density, like Cheez-Its and chips and things like that. If you're going to have them around, maybe have some limits on that, or that's with your lunch, or you don't want to be too punitive with what kids eat, right? We want to have them grow up to have healthy ideas about food and their bodies, and I don't want mine to believe that there's good food and bad food. I think that there's just food that is better for your body, food that is not as great for your body. So having some limits, but making sure there's just lots of healthy things in the house so they can make some choices is helpful. For the summer, having time to plan meals together can be nice, and getting the kids involved. If they decide, I really want to make something with noodles, and they help you pick out what else goes in it, and they come in the kitchen with you and they see how hard it is to make a meal for your family and put yourself out there, they are at a little higher chance of actually eating it. So involving them in things like that can be helpful.
I'll tell you one thing we've tried recently, because we as a family like to watch cooking shows, and we love Chopped. And so my daughter and I did a chop challenge. We had 20 minutes chop challenge the other day for lunch. Gosh. And so now she and my son are planning to do a chop challenge this week for dinner one night. And so I was loving it too. And then I was thinking maybe what I could do this summer is give them more parameters, because right now her chopped lunch involved chocolate chips and quite a few other things.
That's a good start.
But I might be able to say, okay, I could give them their basket ingredients and say,
what are you going to make?
Okay, now with this chop challenge, you have to include peas, and give them several fruits and vegetables. And so that was one thing I was thinking about this summer for us.
Oh, I like that idea. But I agree. Anytime my kids participate in making the meal, the chance of them eating it is so much more. It's tremendous. Even if they don't eat all of it, but they put the effort in, they're going to try it. They're just more likely to do that. I also think that it's helpful with having things available. I stole this from someone else's idea on social media, and it's a great one. Because if you're home for the day, it's almost making a kid's charcuterie board, but filling it with lots of things. Kids always like to dip stuff, raw vegetables or fruit in, and just leaving that out so it's super accessible. That helps them stay out of the pantry for maybe some of the other options that you're trying to limit more. So I saw that and I tried that out, and I was like, it worked.
It worked. Oh, good. Yeah, the other thing to limit what you have on hand are the sugar-sweetened beverages. And I always learned that was soda, but it's also juice. And then when I moved to the South here, it's also sweet tea and Kool-Aid. And so trying to not have that stuff in the home, I think is probably the easiest.
A lot of sports drinks. I feel like that's what I'm seeing. A lot of Gatorade. And all those,
And you don't really most people don't really need a sports drink unless you are marathon running or you have some kind of underlying medical problem, or so I would, like you said, Kitty, I'd treat those just like juice and soda.
Yeah, they're made for those really intense physical activity, lots of sweating. And it makes it hard though, because also in the summer, kids spend a lot of times at pools and there's not as many good options there. I always have to keep in mind, have to maybe be more flexible when we're there. So trying to allow that flexibility is trying to have some of these other things not at home.
I think that's a great way to think about that.
I know a tradition for our family is going to the farmer's market during the summer on Saturday mornings and looking at all the stuff there, as well as trying to grow things in a garden. What is your take on that? And does that seem to help kids want to eat more variety of food?
I think so. And I think some of it is looking at where does our food come from, right? We don't really think about that so much, but when you go and you meet the person that grew the corn, that really teaches you something. It definitely tastes better as well, and it's a family thing you can do to go out together, maybe run to the market, and obviously growing stuff. If a kid grows a tomato, most of them are going to try it because it's exciting, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So you brought this up a second ago, Sarah, and I grew up in a house where people didn't want to come to my house because we didn't have any good food.
Oh.
Like the only treats my mom would keep in the house were some pretzels, and then we had these hard ginger snaps. So everyone would be like, "No, let's go to Megan's house. Her mom's got the treat drawer." And I found myself like ready to go to the treat drawer at Megan's house.
Right.
So I think having that environment where you mentioned treats are okay, so you don't want kids to want them too much.
Right.
What's your advice on how to balance that?
I think that's just a lot about human nature, right? If we're made to think that something is off limits, we're going to be so interested in it, right? So whether we actually really like it or not, I think trying to create an environment where there aren't good foods or bad foods. And it's more, these are the very nutritious foods that help your body in a lot of ways. These are foods that maybe they taste good, but they don't do as much for your body. So we just don't really need as much of those. This is hard for me to do as well, but they say to try not to use sweet foods as like rewards for things. Mm-hmm. Maybe we're just going to go out for ice cream tonight because it's a beautiful day and I just really want some. That's a good enough reason. It's not, oh, you cleaned up your room in 10 minutes so you can have 2 scoops, or just trying to create healthy beliefs about food from a young age. And similarly to that, beliefs about our own bodies. I think body image is something that we start learning at a very young age from hearing. I remember hearing my mom try on clothes and say things about how she thought she looked or whatever. And kids are always listening. And so when we're moms in our 30s and 40s and we're trying on our swimsuits, maybe just be mindful of what you're saying because they are listening, and you don't want your daughter or your son to grow up and hate their body based on things that they heard at home.
Yeah, that is one that I think is very important to make sure, even because a lot of times as parents, you're like not saying that about your kids, but you're not thinking about yourself, right? And not always bringing up those things at the dinner table, because it's a very common conversation when you're around food, but making sure that you are very cognitive of the words you say around your kids about yourself, because you want to be building yourself up, because that's what you want the inner monologue of your child to be.
Exactly.
And speaking of that, I think also we've talked about modeling these things, and modeling your physical activity is a big one, and letting kids know that you're exercising and being active for your health as opposed to wanting to look good in your bathing suit, so that your kids think about that as far as physical activity is good for me in so many ways. Any ideas on, there's some kids that just want to be outside, running, moving, playing with a ball, playing with anything at all times. And then there's some kids that would rather not. Do you have any advice for parents on how to get the kids that are less inclined to be active to get out there and go?
I think similar for adults, that there's some things that are going to be fun for one person and not for somebody else. So thinking outside the box is important. Going to those Nintendo kids and all that, not that this is the only way to get physical activity, but there are a lot of games that involve moving your whole body. So if you're going to have time on the Switch, maybe you're going to play this game where you're standing up and, you're playing tennis or different things like that. Might be, especially on a rainy day, that would be a great way to get some activity in. Things that maybe don't seem quote-unquote exercise. So hiking is fun. You go on a nature walk or an adventure and look for different, my kids are little, right? Look for different sticks and rocks and things like that. And you're moving while you're doing it. We talked a lot about swimming already. Swimming and being in the water is really good cardiovascular exercise for sure. We said things as a family, right? Walking, hiking, biking. Biking is great too, moving your body that way. I think remembering too that it doesn't all have to be a big chunk of physical activity. You don't have to go out and say, you can't come in for an hour. We could cut it up throughout the day and do a little bit here and a little bit there. And an hour with kids tends to add up pretty quickly. You could do some things in your own yard, like work in that garden or have them help you with lawn work, things like that. Kids a lot of times enjoy participating in that. The older ones may give you some lip about it. But once you get out there and you're doing it together, that's often a positive experience.
I always like to encourage helping me pull weeds.
Yes, pulling weeds is good. You could do a water balloon fight when you're done. You could set up an obstacle course to run through.
Oh my gosh, I get requests for an obstacle course on about a daily basis. I feel like I've maxed my thoughts. I need some sort of
supplies.
There's probably plenty on YouTube.
Yes, otherwise they're going to create their own and jump off the couch a lot. Yeah. That's true. That is true.
And I know this is one that I'm not thinking about as much just because of the age of my kids, but as a pediatrician, I know you have to think about it and counsel families about it when kids are in other people's homes or just out and about a lot more. We start to get concerned about them being exposed to some risky substances, tobacco, alcohol, vaping, etc. What do you advise parents, like when do you start talking about this and how do you talk about that?
I think it's really almost never too early to start planting some of those seeds. Maybe if you're out somewhere and maybe you don't vape, but maybe you're out somewhere with your family and you see someone's vaping and your kids are looking, they're probably wondering, what is that? You might say, do you know what that is? Sometimes people put that chemical into their body and it's actually very harmful for their body. And I know when I tell my kids that, they go, so why are they doing it?
Yeah.
Maybe that part comes a little bit later as we get to be teens and we understand doing things because they feel good. But using those opportunities that you see around you to bring it up, I think alcohol is a very common thing that the majority of adults are participating in and have in their homes. And so just, again, modeling healthy behavior about that, noting that this is for adults, that it's not good for your brain until you're a grown-up. It's not safe for your brain while you're growing, things like that.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. And that's literally how I tell my own kids is while your brain is growing, bourbon is not good for your brain. And it tastes terrible. But yeah, just framing it like that and then modeling healthy behaviors at home. I think it's easy to fall into, I've had a heck of a day. I'm going to have a glass of wine. What is that going to teach your kid when they hear that? Like, how about, again, it's a beautiful day. I enjoy rosé. I'm going to have a glass. Like, because I would like to. I think that's probably a more positive way to show them that. I think the nicotine cartridges with the vaping is probably something to talk about. If you're going to somebody's house and they vape, those have got to be up and out. That's how most nicotine poisoning occurs nowadays is kids it's literally like getting the nicotine from the cartridge, which is pretty gross. They're not really eating cigarettes like they did when we were kids. There's not as much of that. Obviously, drug use and prescription pill use and things as they get older, you got to make sure that you're talking about that. And by older, at the 11-year-old child visit is when I would make sure that we've had a cursory, at least, conversation on that. Every kid, again, is very developmentally different. There's that going into 6th grade population, there's like the ones that are still watching Bluey and snuggling with their mom, and the ones that are chatting online with people they don't know and have tried vaping. So you can feel out where your kid is developmentally, but a little bit is always okay as far as education goes, and then feeling them out and seeing what questions they have and moving along as they develop.
I think that's very helpful because, again, these things just sneak up on you.
Yes,
they really do.
They do. They definitely do.
And another topic that I feel like when we were younger wasn't a topic, but today it's a very important topic, is thinking about social connection for our kids just because so much time is spent isolated. Summers look different than they did 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So what are some things that you want parents to think about when it comes to isolation for their kids? Things that maybe they should be paying attention to with behaviors for their kids, if they should be concerned, just because summer can be very isolating for some when they're not going to school.
I think nowadays we have a lot of 2-parent working households. We have a lot of teens and tweens that are stuck home by themselves. A lot of people don't live in the kind of neighborhoods and communities that maybe some people was more common for them years ago, where you just go outside all day long with all kinds of friends your age and nobody worried about anything. Nowadays, I think maintaining healthy social engagement takes some thought and some planning. And so I know top of my list is to schedule some play dates. And we have all different kinds of friends, right? There's the kind of friends where I might call or text the mom today and we put something on the calendar for July. And I might have some that are better at me saying, hey, we're going to the park today. Do you want to come? And so feeling that out, trying different things about when people want to meet up, whether that's at your house or you can meet up somewhere to do some healthy physical activity or try something new together. I think scheduling it in our busy world today when everyone's working, that can really make a big difference. It's also good in the summer to think about the intentional time you're spending with the family. right? And so everyone goes their separate directions, especially in the school year, but sometimes also in the summer. And really scheduling that time that we're going to have dinner together, or we're going to go on a hike together, or we're going to play a board game together. And maybe you call that forced family fun time, right? But you've got to spend some time interacting with each other. And it's also a good time to visit people maybe you haven't seen in a while. Especially, I try to involve my kids in trying to visit elderly people when we can, because it's generally a lonely kind of population that can't get out and about. And so if there's any way for you to do that and check in on other people, I think that's valuable. And it also teaches them how to interact with people that are different than them. And so there's a lot of ways to keep up with your social engagement. You can volunteer. Sometimes that's hard to do with young kids, but if you're involved in any churches or organizations that have a summer festival or things like that, they're always looking for help. So keeping your eyes and ears open. There's also all kinds of free stuff that goes on through the Lexington Public Libraries, through the Lex Arts Foundation. There's all kinds of free things that you can go out to and meet up at. Just need to check those calendars online.
One other thing I had seen recently, an Instagram site called Macaroni Kid, and I think it's everywhere. Like, I think there's someone in all sorts of different locations. And we have a wonderful Macaroni Kid in Lexington. And every week, like, she puts up all the things that are going around either in Lexington or surrounding areas that you can go enjoy with your kids. So that's
great.
That's
it's like
good.
telling you about kid activities.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Activities you can take your kids and have family
idea.
time and do stuff. And my understanding is there are these everywhere. So you probably have your own Macaroni Kid Instagram on there. So check that out.
We'll have to link that.
Yeah, well, I think sometimes when you're just trying to make it through the day in the summer, I'm always really motivated at the beginning, mid to late summer, and you're just like, oh my gosh. We're 3 weeks out from school
What are we
starting.
Gonna do
what are we going to do?
Yeah.
But if you can take a little bit of effort to just check these online calendars that things have, and then, text another mom and be like, hey, do you guys want to
Because I bet they're feeling the same
meet
way.
up? Yes, every other parent is feeling the same way that you are.
You don't want to ask because you're always like feel guilty being like, is it just me? The answer is never just you.
Normalize that.
Let's normalize that parenting is hard. We're supposed to parent in groups.
Absolutely.
I truly believe that.
I do too.
I don't think it has to be isolated. And thinking of some of the stuff that you mentioned, just to make your life easier for the planning is just ahead of time, even thinking me like, okay, Thursday nights are going to be game night. On Monday afternoons, we go for our hike. Then you don't have to always, because we talk about decision fatigue on the show a lot. We truly believe in that here. And you can make your life easier just by making some of these things set so you don't have to think about it and you already know, oh, this is what we do on Tuesdays in the summer. This is what we do on Thursdays. The kids know. They don't have to ask you all the questions. So using some of these ideas and just making it a part of your schedule.
And I had heard somebody recently talking about having everybody think about a few things that they want to prioritize for the summer, whether that's like going to the pool, going to an amusement park, going on hikes, and really getting everyone in the family to do that, including the parents, because I think sometimes we neglect what we actually want to get out of summer in order to create this magical, memorable summer for our kids, which actually they probably have forgotten about by September 1st. So incorporating yourself and then everybody sitting down together and being like, okay, these are the top 3 things for each of us, and we're going to write those down and make sure that we make time for all of these too.
Speaking of that, I know kids just like adults like to check things off, almost creating that summer bucket list with everybody.
Yeah.
So, we want to do all these, let's prioritize it. And then everybody is really excited when you're just checking them off.
And to take turns like that. Right? You get to do, like today we're going to do the thing you want to do. So I have to learn how to do things maybe I don't want to do.
Exactly.
But other people want to do. And then someday it'll be my turn to pick the thing. And that everybody can learn from that.
One thing I think comes up for kids too, just speaking of times of boredom or less structure, is having less structure can sometimes be anxiety provoking for some kids. And stress can build up over the summer with having more time to think and having more time alone. Is there anything that you recommend for people that struggle with that anxiety in the summer?
Yeah, I think first thing to think about is anxiety can be a healthy, normal emotion, right? But if anxiety is to the point that it's your child or it's you or someone else that you love that it's stopping them from doing things that are fun, right? Or stopping them from looking forward to things. Then it might not be at a healthy level. So if you're seeing that, then that's probably time to have a good talk. Maybe go to their pediatrician, maybe think about doing some counseling, things like that. But yeah, just like a little bit of that flip side of the boredom coin stuff can be very normal. Just I'm stuck here. I have weeks till I get to go back to school, be with my friends. What am I going to do? It's always a good time to think about mindfulness, right? That's a very popular word nowadays, but I'm learning myself it can mean so many different things. And one of the things that it means is just being where your body is. And so I know we were out yesterday, we were hiking actually, and one of my sons said, what are we going to do next? What are we going to do next? What are we going to do next? And my husband said, we are living in the moment. They rolled their eyes at that. But to practice that of being where you are. And like if we are hiking, I'm not checking my email and hiking. Or if we are watching a movie, I'm not texting and watching a movie. Or whatever those things are, I think putting your phone up is when you're around your kids is probably the best thing you could do for them. To really give them all your attention. But yeah, working on things like that, working on deep breaths and giving yourself hugs. And that really works to regulate your autonomic nervous system. There's a lot of fun apps, especially surrounding bedtime and things like that, different age levels that can be helpful with that. And going back to the physical activity and social connection, I think that physical activity is one of the best things you can do for anxiety. It gets that mental energy out in the physical. So making sure we're doing some of that every day, that we're interacting with people, and that we're getting good sleep, because everything is worse when you're not getting good sleep.
Preach.
Yes, you're like leading into next week's episode.
Oh, yes.
End on that.
But I will say, I think that's great advice for us to take away as parents, too. Summer is a good time for us to unplug as well. And so maybe setting some more harsh screen limits for yourself in the summer so that you're more present with your kids. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it goes a long way. I think if you're sitting with your kid, but your fingers and your eyes are somewhere else on your phone, they notice that.
So, Sarah, I know you were telling me about this, so I want you to tell our listeners about this. Can you explain, because this is really an easy way to help remember some things you should be prioritizing that we just talked about. Can you tell us what the 5210 program is?
When I was seeing patients every day, this is something I would talk about all the time. So 5210 is a program endorsed by the American Academy of Pediatrics, the Kentucky chapter of the AP, the Kentucky Cabinet for Health and Human Services, Department of Public Health. This is a big program. It's been going on for a while. The goal of this program is to address Kentucky's high rates of childhood obesity, which obviously childhood obesity raises a concern for early development of what we consider adult illnesses, hypertension, high cholesterol, diabetes, things like that. So trying to think of what's a simple way that we can try to attack this problem. And I think this is a very simple way to think about it. So each of the numbers stands for something. And so 5 is the goal of eating 5 or more fruits and vegetables every day. 2 is the limit for screen time, 2 hours a day, and ideally none before age 2. The AP specifically notes that FaceTime is okay in under age 2, if you're calling grandma or something. 1 stands for 1 hour of physical activity per day. And 0 is 0 sweetened beverages. And so 5210 is just a healthy, easy way to think about incorporating healthy habits for the whole family.
Oh, that's awesome. You have given us a lot to think about today. Some takeaway points I took from you is, yes, summer, we still want to keep up some goals and some structure, but it's okay to modify and change things up and maybe have some slack when it comes to making it through the summer with your kids. Your kids might be bored, and that is okay.
Yes.
I am definitely going to do this boredom jar because I think that's going to save me a lot down the road. So I'm going to be trying the boredom jar, and I think also a chore jar. And I can say, go pick something from either the boredom jar or the chore jar. It's up to you.
Ooh, looky there.
Let them make choices. That's always an effective thing.
And then be mindful of your screen time. I think just having the talk with your kids and setting up expectations from the beginning so that they know what you're going to enforce on that. And sunscreen, you just have to do it. They're going to fight you on it. They're going to hate it. Hopefully by the end of the summer, they're not hating it as much. But try some different kinds and figure out what kind your kids prefer, I would highly recommend the mineral face sticks because, those definitely seem to last. And I've got 2 fair kids, and we have done really well as far as preventing burns. So highly recommend those. I loved your answer of the best thing we can do as far as water safety is teach our kids how to be in the water safely.
Swim, yeah.
So teach them to swim, teach them how to blow bubbles, do all of those things. Take the time to do that, and then make sure they understand they should never be swimming alone. Even, I would say for teens too, like
adults,
you should never be swimming alone. Make sure they understand that helmets are cool.
They are. They have ones with like dinosaur spikes on them nowadays.
Yeah, my son just has like a mohawk one.
Yes, that's a good one.
You can also put stickers on them.
Yes.
Yeah, you can really jazz them up.
You can just say, if you're riding, that's what it is.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah.
So make helmets cool. And then don't forget about the home safety, both in your own home, and don't be afraid to ask about the home safety in the homes that your kids are going to be spending time in. And keep healthy food available so that you can give your kids some autonomy, let them have some control over what they're eating. So if you have healthy stuff available, then they can feel like they're making the choices about it. And if you want to, you can also try a chop challenge with your family, pick up some local produce at the farmer's market and make those the basket ingredients that your kids have to incorporate into their meals. And then it's also a good time to address talking about things like substances and risky behaviors that can come up with your kids. Summer might be a good time to touch base with them again about that and let them know that they're just not good for their brains or their ability to grow and become the adult that they want to be. Also, just make sure you are thinking ahead, making time for the social connection for your kids, that they are not feeling isolated during the summer and that you're not feeling isolated during the summer. I think we have all put out there that summer can be hard. It's also super fun.
I love summer.
Yeah.
Just glow in summer. I love it.
So we need to lean on each other. If you're having a week where you're like, this is getting hard for me, reach out to your friends. This is one time social media can be helpful. Let people know you need help. Let people know you need ideas, because lots of people have good ideas out there.
All right. If you have enjoyed this, be sure to follow us, share this episode with other parents that are currently planning for summer and trying to figure out how to navigate it. And we'd love to hear feedback on this topic. Would you like more topics related to pediatrics? Let us know. Just send us a text. Click the link below. Next week, we're going to transition and we're going to talk about sleep. We have a 3-part series related to sleep where we're going to talk about why sleep is important for our overall health, as well as provide more information on those who are struggling with sleep and some lifestyle changes that you can try to incorporate in order to get better sleep, because this is just too common and we've made it common in our society. So we really want to be able to help people reach those sleep goals. Anyways, it's been a great show and we look forward to next week.
See you next time.